Thanks for joining us for Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. African Americans in Ferguson, Missouri are in rebellion over the fatal shooting of 18-year-old Michael Brown by white officer Darren Wilson. Several eyewitnesses said Brown had his hands up while running away from police and was shot multiple times, including 2 shots to the head in what some say was an execution-style killing. Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Jallow, Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. John, was this man executed?
Oh, most definitely. And we must keep our mind focused on the facts. The facts are that he was unarmed. We don't care if he had his hands up. We don't care if he had his hands down, if he was turning, running away, walking towards a police officer. He was unarmed, and that police officer used lethal force against that young man. He was executed. He was shot twice in the head, once within the crown of the head. Michael Brown was executed.
Wow, why? Why, Donella?
That's the question everybody is asking, including myself. Here we have a young 18-year-old male who was unarmed, who was in a position of surrender. Why was it necessary to use that kind of force to disable him? I don't understand it. I don't get it. And we haven't been getting the answers that we need.
Jallow, this whole thing sounds confusing to me. Why would you just, I mean, you hear this and you hear that, and we're going to cover all of it, but why did this man kill him?
You know, that's a question, like she said, that everybody wants to know. You know, this hasn't just started in 2014.
All right.
It takes me all the way back to 98, 99, when Abner Louima was sodomized by the NYPD at the NYPD precinct. So this is a decades-long issue that in the conversation needs to be had, because we are standing on the verge of a revolution.
I'm tired of holding conversations.
You gotta start somewhere.
We've had conversations, we've had police community relations, we've had all of this stuff. And it just gets worse, Reverend Coates.
Apparently, the African Americans in Ferguson are tired of having conversations as well. So it's not New York City, not Los Angeles, not Chicago, but in Little Ferguson.
Was this the correct response?
Well, they responded.
Was this the correct response?
How can you say, how does someone respond correctly out of frustration? They responded. Something boiled on the inside of them. This city that is nearly 70% African American, something rose up in them and said, look, we're not going to take
it anymore.
No more, no more. And it's on the background. In fact, I heard Michael Brown's father say, well, we need to remember that this is just about Michael Brown. And I'd like to correct him today, it's not just about Michael Brown. It's about Eleanor Bumpers. It's about everyone that has suffered. So from this little
goes
town,
back hundreds of years.
Missouri is the show me state, and the people in Ferguson showed us something.
Yes,
absolutely.
Now the president and now the president sends in Eric Holder, Attorney General Eric Holder. And the president gets on TV and says something. I don't know what he said. I still ain't clear. Has his performance in this disappointed you, or is he showing leadership in this, Donella?
You know what? It's extremely disappointing. You know what? I'm tired. Everybody else is tired. You can send Eric Holder. You can send, the militarized police force.
He should have come.
You can send everyone. The point is that we are sick and tired of our children being gunned down in the streets, and we want something done.
Reverend, listen, when white folk were having problems, when the floods and all that, President Obama came. He has not shown up one time when black folks down in Haiti or black folks having problems in Florida or anywhere. Why?
In all fairness, this is a little bit more difficult than the beer summit that he held over Skip Gates and then the police officer stopping him at his door. He's between a rock and a hard place.
He's not running again.
He's not running again, but yet he still has pressures that's on him. At least we go into what type of pressures, but he has pressures on him. He's walking a tightrope.
But Jallow, he shows up in the suburbs.
Listen, I knew that we had a problem and we were potentially on our own when he decided to combine the press conference with Iraq and Ferguson.
What do you mean?
Come on. Ferguson needs its own press conference. It needs its own focus and attention. You can't combine those two. And
He's on vacation. He's on vacation. You expect
But you know, the thing about it is, Khari, even if President Obama were to come to the situation, would it change anything?
What would he do?
Michael Brown still be dead? Yes, he would. Would all of the victims of police brutality and gun violence still be dead?
It would show some empathy, connection, and concern with the people you say you're supposed to represent, since you went around telling everybody you're the first African American.
Well, he already
said... But that's not going to bring our children
back. But yet
back.
has not even dealt with any of the situation, never comes to the
well,
spot
let's see.
to deal with any of our issues.
As President Obama and his aides are flipping through the book as to how to respond to this, and as everyone in their think tank, they said, well, we already said that Trayvon could have been his son. What else is left for him? What else is left for him to do?
I tell you what, a woman named Josie. Woo! Up next on Khari, Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. Welcome back to Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. According to a St. Louis radio station, a woman calling herself Josie says Michael Brown pushed, punched, and grabbed for Darren Wilson's gun. Josie says Wilson pursued Brown and his friend ordered them to freeze. Brown then ran full force at the officer and Wilson began shooting. Now this is according to Josie. Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, the Reverend John Coates, Donella Martin-Braddix. Josie said somebody called the radio station saying that she was Darren Wilson's friend. Her name is Josie. Now, the press runs with this. Oh, Josie says that Darren Wilson's account is correct, that the man lunged at him at full speed, and therefore he stepped back and he had to start shooting.
Oh, please.
Now, who is Josie?
Well, first of all, Josie needs to go somewhere back with the Pussycats, okay? I don't know, but who Josie is a white female propagandist. All right, they realize that is those who are in sympathy with this police officer or who are aligned with him, who have look. They realize that this trial is being tried now in the media. So they have this anonymous person named Josie, nobody knows who Josie is, says, well, this is what was told to me. We're friends of the police officer, a police officer who we didn't know even what his name was because the Ferguson Police Department would not release his name to the public. Well, they said that he could get killed, he could get hurt. Aren't you sympathetic to that? What I'm sympathetic to is Michael Brown and to young men like Michael Brown that are victimized by police excessive force.
Did that anger you, Josie calling in? Who is Josie? Was Josie there?
Right.
Was Josie an eyewitness?
Was she an eyewitness?
We don't know
No,
who
secondhand. Josie had secondhand.
Well, then why would the national media run with this?
Exactly.
Well,
that's the problem.
But the thing about it is, what we also have to ask is that, first of all, the county has already determined, the autopsy has already determined that there were no signs of struggle.
Right.
So
Between the
Josie's
two.
account
Well, I don't know if the
goes
county
out of the
did the
window.
autopsy.
Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
they did.
There
When
was a
did
county autopsy
well,
done, and there was also an independent
Yes.
autopsy done.
All right.
And both results have come back and shown that there was no sign of struggle. So Josie, that was some very irresponsible reporting, and it rings of a propaganda.
So why would the
talking about,
national
too.
media, who wants all this credibility, pick up and run with that?
Because it was irresponsibility on their part as well, because they didn't investigate that. Who is this Josie? She called in anonymously. How do we know who she is? What makes her story any more credible than any of the other
Well, they said it matches up to his story,
Doesn't
right?
matter.
His story, they needed to because they're
So is this a script?
Yes,
Well,
they
it is-
need to
it most certainly
corroborate
is a
And
this
script.
story.
according to the website, The Rush, a conservative blog, we have to be careful and know what's being said. They have an alleged videotape, an audio tape, that shows signs that Michael Brown allegedly threatened the cop beforehand. And people who are reading these conservative blogs, they're getting this misinformation, and they're being, once again, a young black male is being constructed as the menace.
As a criminal.
The
Absolutely.
demonization of Michael Brown began weeks ago, days
Absolutely.
ago,
The
and
same
that's
as
what.
Trayvon Martin.
Exactly.
Yes.
The demonization is taking
What about
place.
that videotape? Even the store owner is now saying, I don't even know if that was Michael Brown.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the store owner didn't call the police.
That's what he said.
And wasn't it over a year ago that footage was allegedly filmed?
And it's-
so we don't know
yeah.
if that was Michael Brown.
If
we
it was
don't
doctored
know.
film.
Right,
We don't know if it was James Brown.
Right,
We
right.
don't know if it
We don't
was.
know.
We don't know
Jim
where
Brown.
that film comes from. But the
It
thing
was
about
somebody.
it,
We don't know
And
who it
it's
was.
funny because with my digging and everything, I found I was able to obtain the beginning of the videotape, which shows this young man is at the counter actually paying for something.
Well, wait a minute.
How
They
do we
say
know?
your conservatives are saying that Michael Brown is a thug.
No.
Wait a minute,
That's
Reverend. Is this where you part ways with your buddies?
First of all, that's part of the propaganda, and they're probably saying the same thing that your Illuminati friends are saying as well. I don't know. There's a propaganda.
By the way, I like that pocket square.
Yeah, I'm sure you
Thank
do.
I appreciate that. But, I mean, they're saying he's a thug.
Right, and you know what sickens me is, once again, as in the Trayvon Martin case, we have a dead man, a dead boy on trial for his own murder.
For his own
because
murder,
now all of a
absolutely.
sudden he had marijuana in his system.
Who cares?
What difference does it make?
He
This
was not
young male was shot execution style
Not
with his
in-
hands up.
absolutely.
It doesn't matter if he had prune
And
juice in his
laid
system.
out in the sun for 4 hours
4
like
hours.
a dog.
No,
Without
no
not even,
EMT called.
and not even allowing his relatives
To
to come near
yes,
and
and
identify
cover
to
him
make
up.
sure who it is.
And you know what,
And they didn't
Khari?
cover him up. I mean,
No,
every
it
time I
don't.
see that photo, it just sends...
And you know what, Khari? What makes me even angry is that they don't even treat animals like that. They take care of the dogs. They would have gotten that dog up. They would have covered that dog up. They treated that young man less than an animal.
Well, they said that he charged. He ran at the man. Josie said, you don't
was
believe Josie?
he was already bullet riddled.
Whatever happened to tasers? Whatever happened to stun guns? Whatever
Shooting
happened
a
to
leg.
using hand-to-hand combat?
The man was
These are
6 feet.
trained law enforcement officers, men who are trained to handle people that are 3 or 4 times their weight.
The man is 6'5", 300 pounds.
So you respond to it with lethal force.
With 6 bullets, you have to shoot him with 6 bullets, because my thing is the first 4 or 5 should have immobilized him.
Well,
Big
once
black man
again,
come in.
6'4".
Big black man
Once
come
again,
What was the 4th for?
in order for a bullet to go through the crown of the head and then go through...
and enter your collarbone.
He had to have already been prone. So the question is, why?
So what is this Josie thing is all about? Is that they're trying to counter the information that's out there, Reverend?
Absolutely.
That's
Is that what's going on?
no,
Is this a
trying to.
propaganda
No,
move?
that's what they did. And that's successful propaganda.
So it
You have to
creates
get-
confusion?
You have to
Yes.
get another version of the story out immediately, and that's what they accomplished by Josie and the Pussycats
Absolutely.
calling into a radio station.
So why? I mean, why not just say, look, the guy did the execution and try him and put him in jail or whatever?
Because then if they admit that,
why do you...
Because
if they admit that, then they would have to admit that he executed this child in broad daylight, and they would have to admit that America has a huge race problem, and that's something that they don't want to
That's
admit.
exactly it. It's bigger than Ferguson.
What do you
Way
mean?
bigger.
Right.
It's bigger than Ferguson. This could happen in any city,
anywhere.
any small town,
And
any
it's
big
happening.
city, and it is happening in
Yes.
America.
And
Yes.
so what you're saying is that the post-racial state does not exist?
Absolutely not,
No.
especially
No.
when you have the young black male who is now being promoted as the threat to the fabric of American society as it exists today.
Now, wait a minute. Al Sharpton showed up. Jesse got booed.
And so did Al
Badly.
Sharpton.
They got
the
booed?
people
Yes.
are not responding to that same old I hand you leaders type
Right.
of leadership. These
Right.
people have not proven to be
It's the young
relevant
folks.
right now to our
As
community.
a matter of fact, if they was relevant, they wouldn't be going through it right
Exactly.
now. Is that
Right.
what
The
you're saying?
young people are now stepping up and saying no, and the young people have always been the ones to lead the revolution. That's what's happening.
Well, they also said they were outside agitators that came in and stirred this up. Do you
police.
believe that?
The
I
police?
believe in outside. I believe that there are outside agitators. Sometime during political seasons, we call them community organizers.
So
The police are the outside agitators.
So what you're saying is what? You're saying that you don't believe outside agitators
All
count?
of this is obviously choreographed by forces that we don't even understand, and we're not getting the true information. What we're getting is the information that they want us to know. Now all the blacks in Ferguson are
Stay
out of
right
control.
there. Racial warfare in America. Up next on Khari, free at last on Bounce23 TV. Welcome back to Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. The shooting in Ferguson, Missouri is part of a growing number of documented beatings, shootings, and killings of African Americans by white police officers in recent months. Is this part of a Turner Diary race warfare script? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Irv Jallow, Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. Look here, Irv Jallow. All of a sudden now, we're seeing this thing that's been going on for the last, what, year? Last year, we're seeing women being choked. A pregnant black woman was choked. A black man was put in a chokehold and killed. We've seen a black woman stopped on the highway, slammed to the ground, I mean beat. We saw what happened in Walmart in Dayton, Ohio, where a guy had a gun that was
a toy gun
from the Walmart, gets shot and killed in Walmart. I mean, am I correct?
That's correct.
I mean, all that stuff I've seen, all that stuff I've read. So what in the world's going on here?
It's looking like maybe this is a chapter out of the Turner Diaries. I mean, population control. You know, getting rid of us
Is this
black
a
folks.
coordinated national effort?
Yes, it reminds me of the CIA and COINTELPRO and how they went in and infiltrated the Black Panthers, how they went in and, you know, was provocateurs
But why is all of this
riots and
happening
things
right
like that.
now? I mean, this is just, Ferguson is just the latest in a long line of stuff. What's happening here?
You know, I think that we are upon a change in America, a revolution, so to speak, that because we are tired of being devalued. Our lives matter. We are human beings as well. When I look back at pictures from MLK and Hanny Lou Family,
You documented 20-some in the last few months?
It was like 30, and their hands
30
are
what?
up. 30
incidents?
Unarmed black people gunned down in the streets. When I look at these photos and I see their hands up in the 1960s and, you know, 63, up in the air saying, please don't shoot, and we're doing that in 2014, you tell me what has changed.
But wait a minute. Now, some of these folk are, you know, what about the argument of, well, a part of this problem is black-on-black crime. You can't solve this until you solve black-on-black. What do you say to that, Donella Martin-Braddix?
Black-on-black crime is part of the whole phenomenon of not only painting the picture of the black male as a menace to society, but also devaluing a black life. After the civil rights movement, you had the hip-hop movement, which glorified the thug culture, okay? And so now you have scenarios that have been happening steadily over the past 10, 15 years, which now you'll have American citizens who sit up and say, yes, thank you, when another black male is killed because the black man is a threat to the fabric of American society. Have we participated in that? We absolutely have participated in that.
But we cannot forget about the system of white supremacy that is set up. We cannot forget about the fact that black people live in close proximity. So yeah, you're gonna have disagreements and yes, you're gonna kill, but you don't hear anybody talking about white on white crime when it comes to, you know, a white boy going into a theater and shooting up the whole theater. He walks out.
It's not called white on white crime.
Let's talk about black on black crime. First of all, we do bear responsibility for our own actions, okay? We do not make excuses for bad behavior, but let's think about and let's talk about the facts of the circumstances. We shoot each other with guns. Well, guess what? We don't buy our guns from gun stores nor for gun shows. We don't manufacture AK-47s, M16s, 9mm, 30, whatever. We don't manufacture it, but yet it finds its way into our community. We don't grow coca leaves. We don't grow marijuana, but yet they find their way into our community.
Excuses. We're making excuses.
Facts, and that's why even some brave congressional people like Maxine Waters even have done studies to show CIA involvement in putting drugs into our community and causing chaos at the same time.
So wait a minute, all y'all doing is blaming the white man. You saying the problem is the white man. You're not taking responsibility for your own behavior.
We have been an instrumental part of our own demise.
What does that mean? That's a big term. Did you hear what she said?
I heard what she said.
Did she just make that up?
We have played an instrumental part in our own demise.
We've been conditioned to do so.
One of the characteristics of oppressed people, okay, is that they don't want to take responsibility for their own involvement within their oppression, but yet we need to understand the global aspect of what all has invested into our
So somebody put the gun in your community. Does that mean you're supposed to take it and shoot your brother and shoot your sister, shoot your mother and your father, shoot the little children? Good God, that's insanity.
When you have no self-worth and you do not value your life because that is what you have been dealing with since you have been in this United States, then how can you all of a sudden expect that switch to
So how
go
come
off?
everybody get mad when there's a police shooting, but they don't get mad when there's a drive-by and you shoot that black child?
Good question.
Who said we don't get
you're preaching to the choir.
Right.
Good question. That should be our first response
should be
to
our
Ferguson,
first.
to Michael Brown, and to whoever else, is that we need to stop killing each other.
Right, and
we
because
are
that's the
upset about
signal.
it.
We are saying we don't even value our own lives, so that when a benevolent police officer decides to get rid of us, you have half the nation cheering because we have made our own selves worthless.
And
we
we
don't
have
even
to
love
see-
ourselves.
and we have to
Everybody's
see.
going down to Ferguson, but won't nobody walk the streets of any major city in large numbers protesting that little 2-year-old that just got killed in a drive-by.
And we
And
need-
it is disgusting when you have cases like in Chicago where a young black male is safer in the streets of a war-torn Iraq than he is in his own neighborhood. Yes, we have a problem.
Yes.
And I wish Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson would come to the next protest, you know, when we kill each other. That's what we really need to address first and foremost, but that's not happening.
One of the ways you stop this police stuff is that you have to send a message that it will not be tolerated.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Well, how do we send that message? We say, look, you want to do this? You sure? You understand? Somebody's got to send that message.
I think
Well-
that Ferguson is now standing up, sending that message.
Oh, certainly. And we
Yes.
need...
No, it's the same old
please.
stuff.
No.
Oh, please.
It's the
We have-
same
we-
old
no,
stuff.
no,
This is
right, right.
different.
We have a
Everybody's
copycat-
crying,
There's
everybody's
a copycat
protesting.
mentality within our
How
our
is this
country.
different?
This is a copycat mentality. When African Americans in other parts of the country see what the people in Ferguson did, they may respond.
So
the
what are they
same
going to do?
way.
Rush the police department?
Well, that's a
Are
concern.
there provocateurs
Well,
on the ground?
That's a concern. That's a concern.
What
and
is?
I think, well, rushing the police department. Look, I don't know if you're familiar with a book called The Turner Diaries, but it was written back in the 70s. That's the same book they found in Timothy McVeigh's possession after he bombed the Murrah Federal Building. Look, that predicts that race war will be caused in
I
our
tell
country.
you what, oh my goodness. Using military weapons against American citizens? Up next on Khari, Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. Welcome back to Khari, Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. One of the most revealing facets of this tragic situation is the display of military-grade firepower by local police against American citizens. Why are local police using military weapons against peaceful protests of American citizens? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. Now, Reverend, what are we seeing here? Military weaponry in the hands of local police against a few local protests. What's going on here?
I think you see several things happening. One thing that you see is theater. Okay, because you see local police departments using military-grade equipment, urban-equipped military-grade equipment.
That they got from the military?
Yeah, that they got from military, but then they do some silly things because they're not trained really properly to use this equipment. Like they put snipers on top of moving vehicles. You know, military-trained people look at that and laugh. Why? But it's the theater of intimidation.
For all
And
Americans.
for all Americans. And you need to realize, don't be hoodwinked, don't be deceived or bamboozled, is that the real people that have been complaining about this for a decade or two now are the folks that we associate with being with the Tea Party and with these militia groups. They're the ones that are concerned about American police being turned on
their own
citizens.
Wow.
You know,
go ahead, Earth.
It reminds me of the scenes from 1963 where you got the dogs and the water hose and
No,
the
this is
police
deeper.
and-
This
I
is
know,
deeper.
but what I'm saying is, in my mind, being a young person, you know, I wasn't alive then. So now to see this
Yes, you
now in
were.
2014,
Yes,
no, I
you
wasn't.
were.
So now to see this in 2014, it lets me know that we haven't come very far.
What should white citizens be thinking about? I mean, are they really thinking that this is only going to happen to black people?
Well-
Don't they realize that once this is unleashed, this happens to all of us?
What Pastor Coates mentioned is that, yes, they are aware and they are concerned. Right now, it seems kind of fun. It's like, okay, yeah, you're turning, you know, it's a police state, but it's against the black people.
Right.
But there's a segment of white Americans who already know that this is a dangerous precedent.
Very.
The airwaves on white American radio and on blog radio, it's burning up with this subject. It's burning up
The
because they
militarization.
realize that what they see in Ferguson, they could really give a real care about the attention being focused on Negroes, but they realize that it just very well may be a dress rehearsal
For something a lot
what's to
bigger.
come.
For what
Let's
happens in
focus-
San
let's
Diego.
focus-
Absolutely.
You know what
Exactly.
else I've been hearing
Absolutely.
too I've been hearing a lot of military people come back, and they're saying that they weren't that equipped when they were over in Iraq. They said this is way deeper than just, you know.
That's the point. Now, you had mentioned the Turner Diaries. What did you want? You were expounding on that. You were saying that there's a possible scenario where somebody might purposely go in and mess with a police building or something?
And we need to be very careful as we protest, as we raise concerns about this.
That people aren't being set up.
Agents and provocateurs that we put in the midst of the crowd. In fact, the media called them outside agitators. They may come in and may try to stage an attack on a police station or a command post or what have you. In fact, when we saw the National Guard brought into Ferguson, they were not in front of the crowd. They were held back to protect the police post.
Yes.
Trust me, if an attack takes place on police in this country, all hell will break out. And we don't want to see that happen because our people are not prepared for the firepower that
Is this what this looks like, Irv?
That's exactly what it looks like to me. It is exactly what it looks like, exactly what it feels like. And I think that's what the people of Ferguson are saying, is that you're antagonizing us. You want us to do something to give you
provoking something. You lock all those killings together, so you're provoking something.
First lesson I learned from Ferguson, the first lesson, they're almost 70% black. It's 70% black people live in Ferguson. They should have the mayor's office, every council seat, who the police chief is, and who they hire to work for police
So what
department.
message do you want to send to black people all over the country? What do you want to say? Don't fall for what?
Don't fall for it. Do not.
Don't protest? Is that what you're saying?
Don't protest. What are protests going to do? We don't need to protest. Don't be an agent in your own demise.
John, do you agree with that?
Well, I think
no, you don't agree with it. Thank you for
Talk
Talktainment Radio. Host Irv Jallow, Reverend John Coast, and Donella Martin-Braddix, and thank you for watching Khari Free at Last.